women on the front and back end of the criminal justice system. Population that our bail and parole agents encounter daily have made poor choices and need direction. Many of their lives are turned into a positive direction through interaction with these officers. We pray for their safety and ask that you provide them guidance and wisdom as they work daily with the freedoms of those clients. May the ones that need the guidance reach out and value the help that is offered. Father, we thank you for these professionals that are called to help those in need. These are your workers that see the good in people and the value in life. Lead us this day as we celebrate and recognize there is more we can accomplish. These things we humbly pray in your name. Amen. Amen. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. This time we'll convene the Commissioner's public meeting. Our public comment on agenda items only.
We have no comments. I'm sorry, there is one.
Well, I don't know whether this is the time to do a commissioner or not.
Judge Lovecchio, if you want to speak at the time when we do the resolution, that would be great.
I'll do that, thank you.
Okay. We have no public comment.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
Sure, Eileen?
Yes, so we are going to start with Proclamation 2.2. Commissioner Marabito is going to read that.
Proclamation, Pretrial Probation and Parole Supervision Week, July 19th to the 25th, 2020. Whereas all Lycoming County citizens deserve opportunities to live healthy, safe, and purposeful lives, and community supervision is an essential part of Pennsylvania's justice system. And whereas corrections professionals such as pretrial, probation, and parole officers uphold the law with dignity, while recognizing the right of the public to be safeguarded from criminal activity. Their demonstrated practices and effective supervision provide an opportunity for successful reintegration. And whereas pretrial, probation, and parole officers work toward changing lives by working with reentrants to help them find solutions to problems and to help them live a safe, healthy, and productive life. And whereas corrections professionals are responsible for supervising adult reentrants while serving, supporting, and protecting victims, as well as providing appropriate advocacy and resources for reentrants. And whereas pretrial, probation, and parole officers work together with law enforcement, treatment providers, social service agencies, and a variety of other programs, groups, and individuals involved with reentry. And whereas Lycoming County pretrial, probation, and parole officers are on the front line of efforts to reduce reoffending and prevent future crime. Pretrial Probation and Parole Supervision Week is a time to recognize and celebrate the dedicated and caring individuals in the community who work diligently to make neighborhoods safer and more vital places to live and raise families, and work to give reentrants a second chance to be productive members of society. Therefore, the Lycoming County Commissioners do hereby proclaim the week of July 19th to the 25th, 2020 as Pretrial, Probation, and Parole Supervision Week. We encourage all citizens to honor these corrections professionals, to recognize their vital roles in the criminal justice system and their achievements towards safer communities. Lycoming County Commissioners signed Scott L. Metzger, Chairman, Tony R. Macera, Vice Chairman, Richard Marabito, Secretary. And I believe, Judge Lovecchio, you had some comments.
Sure. I'm Mark Lovecchio. I'm a judge here in Lycoming County. It's been my honor and privilege for many years to serve this county as a judge, and it's an equal honor to be the administrative judge for the adult probation office. Being one of, well, probably handling the majority of the criminal cases in the county, along with Judge Butts, who does the treatment courts, we have constant contact with pretrial services and probation services. These are spectacular men and women who not only are devoted, not only are well educated, have great demeanor, but also they care. They care about what they do. I speak with many of them on a daily basis. I can't tell you how invaluable they are to me. Sometimes people forget that judges don't know everything. I constantly remind them of what I don't know, and they help me all the time. Whether it's what kind of services to implement for somebody who was just arrested, who we may be releasing on bail, whether it's some kind of services that we may need to provide somebody who was just sentenced, whether there's medical issues, whether there's drug and alcohol issues, whether there's mental health issues, whether there's trauma-related issues. As I've mentioned to the commissioners many, many times, these men and women wear many hats, and we're very lucky to have them here in Lycoming County. They're regarded as some of the best in the state. I know that. I'm on the state, I'm an executive on the state committee, and I've discussed it with them, and we're really lucky. Mr. McCoy actually gave a presentation, I don't know what was it, Ed, about a year ago? About a year ago to the entire state conference for trial judges on best practices for probation. They sacrifice a lot of their time, and I know, I don't want to embarrass anyone, so I won't say names, but it's interesting. It is not uncommon for me to get a phone call or an email from a probation officer who feels like they somehow failed if someone relapsed, or somebody committed another crime, or somebody had some trauma of some kind of their own making. It's not uncommon for them. I've actually spoken with probation officers who cried because they felt they somehow failed their constituents, for lack of a better word, or failed the people that they work for. I think the proclamation was wonderful. I don't know who wrote it. Dave, did you write it? Okay. But I thought it was wonderful. I think it nailed it. But as I said, it's my honor to work with them, and I'm so privileged every day to be able to ask them for help and to utilize their resources and to utilize their information. Many times we'll make recommendations. Just happened last night. There was someone who relapsed, and the issue was, what are we going to do? Sometimes I think what people on probation or people in the community sometimes think is that everyone's here to catch somebody doing something wrong and then to incarcerate them or to punish them. It's just the opposite. These people here, these fine men and women, if somebody does something wrong, they feel like they failed. Their job, in my opinion, from what they've taught me, is to keep people out of jail, is to make them productive members of society, to rehabilitate them. Because if we do that, then society is protected. But I want to thank them, and I think we should applaud their efforts. And I just hope I have the privilege of continuing to work with them, and thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to recognize Mr. Ed McCoy, who I'm sure probably would like to address us as the chief of the Adult Probation Office.
Yes, that'd be fine.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd just like to say, just reiterate what Judge Lovecchio said. It's not an easy job, and especially in these times where law enforcement is getting a bad rap. These guys put their lives on the line every day, and the citizens of Lycoming should know that they're well served. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chairman, I believe that Mr. Ebner from the prison, Deputy Warden at the prison, would like to speak.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having all of us here today. For the record, my name is Chris Ebner, Deputy Warden of the Lycoming County Prison. As many of these fine men and women know me, I got some unique quirks, but I do have one unique quirk in that I probably am the only person in this county that has ever worked for both fine agencies. I worked as the adult probation officer earlier in my career, and then I worked with the bail release program later in my career. And this has become a very important week for me, given how my career has progressed. You can go on, and I believe the judge and Chief McCoy summed up a lot of things, but I think what is important today that everyone needs to understand is with all the years of supervision that I have in supervising men and women on probation, pretrial, we got thrown a curveball in March, and we had to change everything and every concept that we known to supervision to adapt to the ongoing pandemic. And as many of us, myself included, change is not always the easiest thing, but to be able to adapt on the fly like these men and women have been able to do really speaks volumes for the professionalism that Lycoming County gets each and every day. So I really, again, this is always my favorite week, but I think this year it's more important to once again thank the men and women of the bail release program and the adult probation office for being able to adapt and not miss a beat and continue their mission. So with that, I'm very proud of each and every one of you in this room. Please keep up the good work and always stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? We have the warden.
Thank you, Commissioners. Brad Shoemaker, Warden at the County Prison. I wanted to, a lot has already been said, and I just echo those same sentiments regarding the fine men and women that we are here to honor today. I had the privilege of working in the adult probation office before moving on to the prison system, and I know what it is that they do. Oftentimes it's a thankless job, and there's a misconception that they spend a lot of time wanting to put people in jail. Far greater energies, efforts are made to keep people out of jail. I think the proclamation even says giving people a second chance. And in some cases, it's not just a second chance, it's a third chance, it's a fourth chance. Lycoming County is a safer and a better community because of the men and women in the bail release program, or the bail release office, and the adult probation office. And I applaud their efforts. They do a tremendous job, and they work very tirelessly and sometimes thanklessly. And it's a testament to their professionalism, and I applaud them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on that? I just want to say quickly, because I'm sure my colleague would also like to have some remarks. I know to the employees and to obviously the judge and so forth, this is the kind of job that's with you 24/7. Even if you're not on call, when you're going home, you're thinking about what happened, I'm sure. And I think it's important for our citizens to understand that. It's different from a job where you might be working in construction. You may go home and you still think about the project, but you're not worried about whether or not the person is relapsing or whether or not the victim is safe, or how do you balance the needs of all the parties involved. So we certainly recognize that, and we appreciate that. And we want to thank you all, the employees who are here. There are quite a few. For those of you who are watching from home, there are many of them here. We want to thank you for what you do. Mr. Chairman, do you have some comments?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. As most of you know, I was wore these same shoes for 32 years that these individuals wear, these men and women, and it is a tough profession. The average length of an agent and officer is 4.5 years, and you compare that to an NFL lineman of 3.2 years. They feel like often days when they go home from work, they have the same effect. It's something that you just don't go home and forget about. You do cry when you see someone throwing their lives away, or they overdose and they're gone forever, and it does affect you. because you put a lot of time into helping them. And by the grace of God, you pray that they are able to turn their lives around. I can't thank them enough for what they do. It's a dangerous job. They know I've shared with my staff over the years how I feel about each one of them. And it's a job that takes a special individual to do. Gary does a great job with his staff, and Ed does a great job with his staff. And what they did during the COVID crisis early on is absolutely amazing. They continue to provide the county with the services. They saw the clients out in the field, and they made over 1,000 contacts during that short period of time, and didn't stop. It didn't stop them. They found more creative ways to do their job. And so that hats off to them. Thank you for what you do. And be safe. Each and every one of you, please be safe so you can go home to your families each night. Last thing I'll share with you, you do get those rewards. They're few and far between. Two days ago, an individual that I had not spoke to in approximately 15 years reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Thank you for saving my life," and said that they were doing quite well. Apparently, I had put them in jail at one point when they were using. They felt that I was against them at that time, but realized in the long run that it actually saved their life. So those are the things that make you smile. This individual's doing quite well now, lives in another area in Pennsylvania, and it was good to hear from him and to hear how well he's doing. And again, we're led by amazing court system with the judges. Judge Lovecchio puts his heart and soul into this, and we thank you for their leadership. So thank you.
Thank you. We have a citation here, which we will...
Cindy passed those.
Oh,
out.
she did? Okay, thank you. Thanks. Okay. Well, if you folks want to stay, you can, although it might make people more comfortable if we can get more. Thank you all. We just have some folks leaving, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to 2.1, and Commissioner Marabito has a proclamation for the 30th anniversary of the ADA.
I'm going to read this proclamation, which is a little shorter, and then I'm going to read a quick little history from someone who was very involved in it. Proclamation, 30th anniversary of the ADA. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was passed on July 26, 1990 to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities. And whereas the County of Lycoming in Pennsylvania affirms the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities as set forth for the state of Pennsylvania and as embodied in the ADA, the laws of the state of Pennsylvania, and ordinances of Lycoming County. And whereas numerous organizations in Lycoming County and Pennsylvania work with constituents and communities to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that's envisioned by the passage of the ADA. And whereas the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act calls on all citizens to observe this day with fitting observances and events that celebrate Americans with diverse abilities and renew our commitment to the promise of freedom for all Americans. Now, therefore, the Lycoming County Board of Commissioners do hereby extend greetings and best wishes to all observing July 26, 2020 as Americans with Diverse Abilities Awareness Day. Excuse me. Lycoming County Commissioners signed Scott L. Metzger, Chairman, Tony Messer, Vice Chairman, Richard Marabito, Secretary. Mr. Chairman, I want to begin with a short passage from the History of the Americans with Disabilities Act by Arlene Meyerson. And for those who don't know, Ms. Meyerson was a founder and became the directing attorney of the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund in 1981. She's been involved with developing and passing the major disability rights laws for the past 40 years and in shaping disability laws and quality principles. She wrote this in 1992, and I want to read it because I think it just gives us a context to the historical significance. This is her. The history of the ADA did not begin on July 26, 1990 at the signing ceremony at the White House. It did not begin in 1988 when the first ADA was introduced in Congress. The ADA story began a long time ago in cities and towns throughout the United States when people with disabilities began to challenge societal barriers that excluded them from their communities, and when parents of children with disabilities began to fight against the exclusion and segregation of their children. It began with the establishment of local groups to advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. It began with the establishment of the independent living movement, which challenged the notion that people with disabilities needed to be institutionalized, and which fought for and provided services for people with disabilities to live in the community. The ADA owes its birthright not to any one person or any few, but to the many thousands of people who make up the disability rights movement. People who have worked for years organizing and attending protests, licking envelopes, sending out alerts, drafting legislation, speaking, testifying, negotiating, lobbying, filing lawsuits, being arrested, doing whatever they could for a cause they believed in. There are far too many people whose commitment and hard work contributed to the passage of this historic piece of disability civil rights legislation to be able to give appropriate credit by name. Without the work of so many, without the disability rights movement, there would be no ADA. The disability rights movement over the last couple of decades has made the injustices faced by people with disabilities visible to the American public and to politicians. This required reversing the centuries-long history of out of sight, out of mind, that the segregation of disabled people served to promote. The disability rights movement adopted many of the strategies of the civil rights movement before it. Like the African Americans who sat in at segregated lunch counters and refused to move to the back of the bus, people with disabilities sat in federal buildings, obstructed the movement of inaccessible buses, and marched through the streets to protest injustice. And like the civil rights movement before it, the disability rights movement sought justice in the courts and in the halls of Congress. At this point, Mr. Chairman, we have a number of people here who were interested in speaking, and we'll invite them to the podium.
Thank you. If they could just please introduce themselves and where they're from, and a short, brief description of what they do for our community.
And be sure to speak into the mic so it goes on the screen.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Jim Hicklin. I'm the County Mental Health Director at the Lycoming Clinton Joinder. We provide services for folks diagnosed with intellectual disabilities, mental health diagnoses, and children birth to 3 with a developmental delay. First, I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for taking time out of your schedule to issue this proclamation recognizing the 30th anniversary of this groundbreaking civil rights legislation. 30 years ago, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, paved the way for equality and ending discrimination in the areas of employment, transportation, public accommodations, and access to state and local programs and services for individuals living with physical and emotional disabilities. Today, the ADA ensures reasonable accommodations are made so that equal enjoyment of goods, services, facilities, and privileges is available to all, regardless of disability. Further, the ADA ensures housing and employment without discrimination. Because of the ADA, individuals with disabilities have more independence, freedom of choice, control over their lives, and the opportunity to be fully and equally engaged in their community, regardless of disability. The Supreme Court Olmstead decision affirmed the ADA's prohibition of the unnecessary institutionalization of individuals with disabilities, and that states must provide services in the most integrated settings possible, To that end, states must provide community-based options for institutionalized individuals who wish and are capable of living in a community setting. The ADA has provided the most basic of human needs, a sense of belonging, of confidence, independence, and self-esteem. In closing, I'd like to share a story about an individual I had the pleasure of working with a number of years ago. We'll call him Marvin. Marvin was diagnosed with an intellectual disability when he was 4 years old. At the age of 5, upon the recommendation of his pediatrician, Marvin's parents placed him in the State Center in Laurelton, Pennsylvania. Marvin remained in Laurelton until he had the opportunity to move into a group home in Williamsport, where he resided for 10 years before passing away. Today, placing children and young adults into institutional settings isn't even an option. With the assistance of community-based services, folks with disabilities are remaining in their family's home, working and participating in their communities more than ever. Each person is looked upon as having value, with something to contribute to the community, while enjoying all that the community has to offer, thereby improving not just their lives, but the community as a whole. That story is just one of many of the folks that we see every day and that we support. Folks who had lived on the fringes or out of sight for the longest period of time, who are now contributing in ways that are just remarkable. So it's groundbreaking. It's changed the lives of so many people. But in the end, it's a good start. You know, there's so much more that can be done to help this population. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Mackey. I work at the Pennsylvania College of Technology, and I'm the Assistant Director of Disability Services at Penn College. So what we do at Penn College is really support our students in providing accommodations to assure that they have equal access to opportunity in the classroom, in our facilities at Penn College, and in programs and really anything that they do. Yeah.
You know, what's happening is we can't.
No worries.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
I'm happy to repeat.
Yeah, maybe you could repeat
Sure.
because it's showing up as inaudible.
I apologize. My name is Katie Mackey. I work at the Pennsylvania College of Technology as the Assistant Director of Disability Services, where at Penn College we work with students to provide accommodations to assure equal access in all of everything that they do at Penn College, programs, facilities, services. I just wanted to thank you for the invitation, for being here today. Really happy to represent Penn College, and thank you for the proclamation.
All right, just make sure you guys can hear me. My name is Brian Patchett. I am the President and CEO for North Central Site Services. My family and I also reside here in in Lycoming County, and we love it here. I'm grateful to be here. I appreciate the proclamation. I appreciate the thoughts that were shared as well about the Americans with Disabilities Act and the history. I remember the passage of this bill. As a person as well who has a visual disability, I've been visually impaired since I was 7. And I remember when I graduated from high school, I actually graduated from high school in West Virginia, and I was then basically approached and said, you know, would you like to be institutionalized? And at that point I said no. I said more than that actually, but I said no. And and it was and because I wanted to go to college, and so I went to college. And I appreciate what just was said about, you know, disability services in college were tremendous for me. It was great to go to college and eventually have 2 master's degrees from Syracuse University, and then to realize that I had the opportunity to really look at how I could help change people's lives and help people with disabilities to be successful. I spent the last 30 years doing just that. I started out training municipalities, counties, so forth on the Americans with Disabilities Act after its passage. I later have been working on delivering direct services to help people become more independent. And have been the CEO here now at North Central Site Services for just a little bit over a year. It's a great organization, as you all know. It's been around since 1957. And we provide direct services to people who are blind or visually impaired. In fact, over the last year, we've served roughly 3,000 people, children and adults, in Lycoming County. And that includes vision screenings, that includes eye exams, and assistive technology. We've been fortunate for some great donations from organizations here that we've been able to build a state-of-the-art assistive technology center. Technology is what changes a person's life who has a visual disability. You think about there's two things that are challenged for people with visual disabilities. One is transportation, and the other one is access to information. And so if we can help someone get some technology so they can read and access things on their phone, their computer, be able to be employed and get jobs within the community and be successful. That's what assistive technology can do. Transportation, we help people get transportation to doctors, to the grocery store, all kinds of things. And even in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic that we're in, we have been able to reach out to hundreds of people, in fact, more people than we typically would. We went back to our records many years just to find people that we can serve. And so I believe in helping people with visual disabilities to be more independent every single day. That's really what our goal is at North Central Site Services. We also employ several folks in a community integrated setting and, again, helping people find jobs in the community. And so it's my commitment to continue to do that and look forward to working with all of you as we make the ADA more and more a reality. And thank you for your support, and have a great rest of your day.
Mr. Patchett, what year was that that they asked you if you wanted to be institutionalized?
That was actually 1984.
When you think about it, that's not that long ago. I mean, it's amazing that they would that our society would go to someone and say, "Hey, do you want that?" So
yeah,
it pains me to think that, and obviously you have made such a contribution. We had a great time touring the facility a year ago or so, and we'll be back.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Good morning. I am Christina Steinbacher Reed. I'm the Executive Director of BLAST Intermediate Unit 17. For those of you who may not know of BLAST, we are an education service agency serving Bradford, Lycoming, Sullivan, and Tioga counties, which makes our acronym of BLAST. We were developed back in 1971 as an education service provider. We are one of 29 IUs across the state. And when we were developed back in 1971 as an act of the General Assembly, our charge was to support all educational services, and at that time it was supporting students with identified disabilities. Our vision today remains focused on serving students with disabilities. Our vision is to transform lives and communities through educational service, and we focus on students, children who have identified disabilities and providing them a variety of services. To share just kind of the macro impact of BLAST, last year alone, we provided direct services to over 900 early intervention students. Those are children ages 3 to 5. That service could look like therapeutic service. It could be vision therapy, speech therapy, cognitive development therapies, whatever that child needs. Oftentimes our service provision happens in child care settings, or we go into the child's home and work directly with the families. This is oftentimes the first time the family may be recognizing that their child has a diverse ability, and we are very proud and humbled to be working with families as they start that journey and really starting to discover the new abilities that their children have through new eyes. In our school-age services, we directly impact, last year alone, over 2,000 students in a school-age setting. That was ages 5 through 21. And again, that service can look very broad, from autism support, emotional support. We run 2 partial hospitalization programs. Whatever the child needs, that's our role, to be able to provide that. So transforming lives and communities for BLAST, it's at the heart of what we do, and servicing families and students with diverse abilities is work worth doing, and we talk about that often. It's also work that we cannot do alone. When I hear Penn College and North Central site. These are all partners that we somehow overlap. And just hearing and seeing everybody here today, recognizing we can't do this work without a network of support, and it really takes a village. And I'm really proud to live in a community, I was born and raised here, that's focusing on access and opportunity for all. I think we've made significant strides over the last 30 years, and I think there's still work ahead. And I'm excited about the work ahead, and I'm excited for the work here in Lycoming County and to work with our partners to that. So thank you for recognizing the importance of this day.
Thanks for being here. By the way, be sure to speak directly into the mics because we are transcribing it on the screen.
Hi, my name is Denise Larson. I'm here representing UPMC Pediatric Rehabilitation Services, which is a fairly new department. However, we were initially started in 1923 by a Rotary Club project to help kids with polio. That turned into Lycoming County Crippled Children's Society, which turned into Children's Development Center in the 80s. In 2012, we merged with Hope, and then in October of 2019, our services were taken over by UPMC, and we are now considered the Pediatric Rehabilitation Department at UPMC. We're honored to be here to represent and to thank you for the proclamation of the ADA. Everyone that we deal with, like just went out. Everyone we deal with is definitely someone who takes advantage of the ADA and is very thankful for the ADA. We do many, many services. We service children through physical, occupational, and speech therapies. We contract with BLAST, who is here. We contract with many of the school districts, and we also contract with the county for the early intervention services. We do occupational and physical therapy for those services. All through all the different changes, through everything that's happened, I'm proud to say that we have been able to continue to work with the kids and their families and help them get the best possible results they can. Our mission has been the same for the past 97 years, and that's just to keep every child in doing whatever they can do to their greatest potential. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want to come up to this mic, or do you think that mic is working, Jerry? Try it. You can try it.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. My name's Mark Fulmer, and I'm a volunteer with Lycoming County Special Olympics, and I just want to say thank you to the commissioners and all of the great people in Lycoming County for your support of our program. For anybody that doesn't know much about our program, we supply sports and competition training for intellectually disabled individuals in Lycoming County. We currently have over 120 athletes right now, and we provide this year-round. We have 12 different sports that we have many volunteers that coach and help train our athletes. I think I just lost it, right? Yeah. I'll walk up here. There, can you hear me? That doesn't work either. Well, so I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to everybody that this whole county that is all involved with our individuals that need our support so greatly. If you know of anybody out there that has an individual that you think that they would like to be an athlete, we have a great program that they can benefit from. And we too work with many of the programs here, such as Penn College is a great supporter of our program here in Lycoming County. And we do so much more than just sports and competition training now. We also do athlete mentors. We do global messaging. We do healthy athlete. It really is, Special Olympics really is a big part in the inclusion revolution for sure. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rochelle Abbott, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer.
Yeah, you probably should come here.
Try speaking directly to that one. Have a
Directly
little
into the
challenge.
mic. Okay, so I'll do this way so I don't have my back towards everyone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rochelle Abbott. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for STEP Incorporated. STEP is the community action agency for Lycoming County, and we have been in operation since 1964. And as part of the ADA, we want to appreciate the proclamation that was put together. We are the provider of ADA transportation on behalf of the county, as well as throughout all of our services. We provide assistance to various individuals in different ways and abilities. And so our mission is to engage individuals, families, and communities in the pursuit of social and economic success. And we do that from everywhere from early education all the way through senior services, and many of the individuals we serve do have different abilities, and we support them in any way we can. Over the last year, we have served over 12,000 individuals in Lycoming County and their families, and that is something that we are very proud of. So thank you today for this recognition, and to another 30 years.
Is there anyone else?
Creature of habit. Apologize. Hello, my name is Karen Koch, and I'm the advocacy coordinator. Is that coming across okay? Inaudible? My name is Karen Koch, and I'm the advocacy coordinator at the Center for Independent Living here in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I've listened to others who have just spoken today. First, I would like to say to Mr. Hickland, I said I really, really liked your statement about it's a good start, the 30 years for the ADA. I heard Mrs. Mackey from Penn College talk about the number of students that they support at Penn College. Mr. Patchett from North Central Site Services talk about the number of services that they delivered in Lycoming County. Over 3,000 people received services last year. Blast spoke about 2,000 individuals last year, kids with disabilities who received services. Ms. Larson from UPMC Pediatric Rehab talked about the impact and the need for the services that they provide in this community, and pointed out that these services have been available for a very long time under different names, but nonetheless available in Lycoming County. Mr. Fomer spoke about Special Olympics and the number of individuals that participate and benefit from that program. And Ms. Abbott from STEP talked about the 12,000 families that have been served in the past year in Lycoming County. So if I think about all of those numbers that have been mentioned, and I think about all of those agencies that provide those services, I think about this. That must mean that there are people with disabilities that live in Lycoming County. We talk about a county who, wants to increase business, wants to increase opportunities for the county to expand and grow, to talk about retaining people who were born and raised in this area. Why do people leave areas? Why do people stay in areas? I think if Lycoming County truly seriously wants to embrace the Americans with Disabilities Act and truly recognize the needs of individuals who with conditions that substantially impair their major life and activities, not limited to things like walking, navigating, seeing, and or being heard, as defined by the ADA, and amended by the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. I mentioned the Rehab Act because that actually started in 1973, long before 1990, on a hot July day when President Bush signed the ADA into law. In 1973, the disability community had already made their presence known and made it aware that they wanted the same civil rights that everybody else has. So today, as I stand here before the commissioners, Mr. Metzger on the phone, Commissioner Mirabito, I ask to you, I do not ask, I will say demand, I'm going to be pushy today, that Lycoming County develop a disability advisory council, that this disability advisory council participate in meetings, that this disability advisory council be involved with the city, with the county, with making decisions, with every aspect of the county, whether it's emergency planning, whether it's streets and recreation, whatever it may be. People with disabilities live in this county, and they need to be able to participate in this county. So I ask you today, Commissioner Mirabito, and I believe Commissioner Metzger is on the phone, to commit to us today publicly to meet with us and to establish the Disability Advisory Council. And when I say a Disability Advisory Council, by no means am I taking away anything from anybody that spoke earlier, but I'm talking about people that truly have disabilities. Not just people who are representing agencies, but people who have a disability, perhaps like Mr. Patchett who spoke. He's a gentleman who has visual loss. So we ask now for your commitment to agree to establish this committee, and we would like to have a date that we can sit and talk about this sometime in the future.
Well, I certainly can't commit for the entire board, but I can tell you that I think it's a very interesting idea, and that I think it's probably a very important idea in terms of helping us understand and implement many facets of the ADA. I mean, for example, even I see Marie Prince is in the audience, and she educated me about how the mechanisms that we use for communicating didn't allow her and her husband to really be able to participate fully in their civic life. So I certainly am open to the idea of looking at it. I mean, I think that one of the issues that you raised is in terms of emergency preparedness. If I'm not sure, and I would have to talk to the folks over at the Department of Public Safety, but I'm not sure whether we do have mechanisms for communicating during emergencies, but I certainly would like to hear from folks in the disability community as to how they would deal with whether it's a flood or whether it's some other crisis, including parents who have grown children. And I see one in the audience here today with intellectual disabilities, and how I've said this before, that when I was knocking on doors in Jersey Shore years ago, I remember speaking to a mother who was probably 59 years old, who had an adult child with intellectual disabilities, and just the difficulty of trying to, as she got older and as she developed health problems, also deal with his health problems in just his daily living. So I think it's a great idea. It's the first time I've ever heard of it here. I am positive they probably exist in other cities and towns.
I'd be happy to share information from Allegheny County. Allegheny County has a great network in which they have people, like I said, people with disabilities who live in the community, who live in that county, who have, the same civil rights as anybody else does to access that community and be involved in that community. And if people with disabilities aren't identifying what the needs are, the needs will continue to go on and on and on and be unmet. So like I said, if it's possible, Rick, I know you can't represent your associates, but we would like to look at a date when we could sit down and discuss this.
Well, I certainly am sure there's no problem with sitting down to discuss it, and I'm sure that both of my colleagues, I'll let Mr. Metzger speak for himself, but I'm sure Mr. Masser would be open to sitting down and discussing that and seeing. And I actually, it's a surprise to hear about it today, although there's nothing more fitting to honor the people who have spent decades and decades of working to pass the ADA. And you're right, it started with Section 504. And in Los Angeles and San Francisco, there were major demonstrations where they occupied the federal building to try to get the rights under Section 504 for other people.
And some of those same advocates that occupied the federal building are who we consider the fathers of independent living, such as Judy Hoonan and Wade Blank.
And the mothers of independent living.
Yes,
Right,
you are correct. I thank you, fathers and the mothers.
Right.
Those who bore this this thing that we call independent living. But like I say, when you listen to the numbers that were shared by these other groups that support people with disabilities in the community, people with disabilities are here, and if we want them to have an opportunity to get educated and to have jobs and to participate in the community, to live in the community, to pay taxes, to be a part of the community, that's what the average person wants. So again, I look very forward to setting up a date that we can discuss this, and I want to apologize on behalf of a few others from the office who wanted to be here today, but they were doing an emergency transition from a nursing facility, and Mr. Harner had to meet with some folks about employment. So again, we look very forward to meeting with you and establishing this council. Thank you.
I would suggest you call Cindy in our office and try to schedule a
Not
time.
Eileen? Go through Cindy?
No, usually Cindy does the scheduling, right, Eileen? Or do you want to?
Typically, I've
Yeah.
always been directed, okay, call
Yeah.
Cindy? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Chairman, I don't see anyone else rising to speak. Do we still have?
Okay, Commissioner, do you have any words that you'd like to share?
No, please feel free. I've been speaking quite a bit here.
Okay, I'd like to thank all the agencies that were there today. Your work is so appreciated, and we thank you for what you do. I'll share you a little bit about some personal things about me and how important the disability community is to me. My mother, the last 5 years of her life, she lost her leg. She was in a wheelchair. So we got to experience firsthand what she was going through as we took care of her, and as she moved around her community, the community, she didn't slow down in her lifestyle, which was a credit to her. But all the assistance that we received for her with the condition she was at in her life was a great asset. 2 years ago, as you know, I've been involved with the league for about 20 years. I always wanted to get a challenger division started in Montoursville. We were very successful at doing so. East Lycoming and Jersey Shore had fantastic challenger divisions. And so we were able to get one going with about 15 kids. The age ranges range from 4 all the way up to 17. And then I had the opportunity to coach that team for 2 years. We didn't have a team this year because of COVID. But one of the best times that I've ever had in my Little League experience to work with these fine youth. And to have our kids in the league be buddies was an eye-opening experience for those kids. We had parents later that said, as their child went home, they had a new appreciation for people who had disabilities. And the friendships they would develop in just an hour and a half on the field, working with the kids, was very moving. So we look forward to continuing that. It's a great program through Little League. One of the most attended and exciting times during the Little League World Series is the Challenger game that's held on Saturday morning, when they have 2 teams come to the community and participate in a Challenger game. And to watch that is just very moving. Lastly, the Children's Development Center that's there in the room today, I want to personally thank you, because as kids are going to preschool at the age of 4, I was going to your facility on West Edmond Street. I had a disability at age 4. And through the grace of God and the power of prayer, and through your staff working with me, I was able to overcome that disability and start school on time. And so I have a very warm spot in my heart for that agency that's down on West Edmond Street. So thank you to those individuals and that staff. But thank you to everybody that works with the disability community. There's still more work to be done. But we want to know how much we appreciate you, and thank you.
You know, I want to just add that thanks for sharing that with us. I think that one of the hardest things for us to do is to recognize that challenging the status quo is how change is made. And I read the piece at the beginning today because I wanted everyone to sort of understand the historical context. And especially with disabilities, we are all on a path to having less ability. Some of us may start out as birth, as Jim Hicklin mentioned, with intellectual disabilities, but all of us throughout our lives are going to travel on a path where we have fewer abilities than we had, whether it's as we age, physically or mentally. So I also want to thank everyone that's here today and say that it's a great honor to be able to hear from people and recognize also that our ability to really affect change is how much we can move forward. And Jim, you mentioned that too, Mr. Hicklin. You mentioned that there's a lot of work to do. And I think one of the best ways to do that work is to have people engaged in it who are living it every day. So I appreciate, Ms. Koch, what you're directing at that.
Could I ask Mr. Metzger one question? Is Scott still on the phone?
Yeah.
Are any of those kids with disabilities that played Challenger, are they joining him and the other kids on the trip to D.C. to meet the president?
I don't know.
Could we ask him that?
Mr. Metzger, did you hear that question, Commissioner?
I did not.
Ms. Koch was asking if any of the kids who play Challenger are on the trip with you to Washington.
Do they get to meet the president?
No, they are not.
So they've been excluded?
Well, and in fairness to them, I don't know whether they've been excluded or whether logistically, and I'm not trying to make excuses.
Were they invited? That's my question then. Were they invited?
I don't know.
Well, we did not have a Challenger division in the league this year due to COVID. What we did was we actually put together the 13 kids that we are taking today. We took them from the major division, which was the 9 through 12 age bracket. We took the kids from 4 different teams.
My question though was, were any of the children with disabilities invited? That was the question.
They asked for 13 kids and 5 adults to come down.
The question
and again,
was...
we didn't have a Challenger team in our league this year,
Let him finish.
so we couldn't reach out to those kids.
So I guess the point you're making, Karen, is that we need to try to be as inclusive as possible. Right, I know, and that's one of the challenges we have as a society, and we have to just continue to strive towards that. And none of us is perfect, and no situation is perfect, and you know what? In retrospect, I bet they wish they had had an opportunity to invite some kids, and sometimes... And that's why the movement to include people in society is so important, and that's why the institutionalization was so damaging, because when people are out of sight, out of mind, then we don't. Right. And by the way, a lot of these are vets. I was reading some of the history of the ADA, and Vietnam veterans who testified before Congress and said, you know, I was over there fighting for people's rights, and I came back and realized that I couldn't get my wheelchair on a bus. I couldn't get into my apartment building. You know, heartbreaking stories of people, if they wanted to go somewhere on transportation, had to literally have someone else come to pick them up out of the wheelchair, bring them on the bus, fold up the wheelchair, put it on the bus. So they couldn't really go alone anywhere. So I guess we are trying to grow, and that's part of it. Our challenge is to find a way to grow without blaming. And yet at the same time challenge the status quo.
Education is the key, and
Right.
if people will not understand people with disabilities as long as they consider them as something separate. If you do
Right.
not interact with people with disabilities and include those same people, you're never going to get it. You're never going to have inclusion.
Right.
It's got to start at the ground.
And one of the great things about the agencies that we're here today is that they're working towards that. Is there more work to do? Absolutely. Absolutely. But hopefully we can do it coming together and finding a way. But it won't happen without challenging and ruffle some feathers. I mean, that's why I sort of read the piece at the beginning. We're so, you know, when Martin Luther King was marching in 1960 in Selma and these places, people didn't think he was a great guy. They said, why is he disrupting people, right? Why are these people insisting on sitting at the lunch counter? It's only 50 years later that people can honor. And so the trick, I think, for all of us, myself included, is to find a way that we can make change and get people to understand now what's needed so we don't have to wait 30 or 40 years for people. Same thing with Nelson Mandela, who became president of South Africa, right? I mean, he was on trial as a treason So anyway, listen, Mr. Chairman, have a good time. Bring it back to the kids, to all the kids. And we thank all of you today with the ADA for what you do.
Thank you.
Should we?
Commissioner, before we move on to action items, can we go back to, I think it's 1.4, and approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we need to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
There was someone here, I thought it was coming with her daughter who, with the ADA, but I don't see her, Amber and Diana. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We're going to move
Connie,
on.
you want to move on?
We're moving on to action items. So we'll go to 7.1 with John Lavelle. Vote on award RFP for hazard mitigation plan.
Morning, John.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Real quick before I get started, I'd like to let you know that we have our new hazard reduction planner, Alyssa Henry here. She's been at the WBRA as project manager and various other titles for 8 years? 8 years. So we really look forward to having her project management experience utilized in all of the various projects that we have started here in the hazard mitigation part of the planning department.
Welcome, Ms. Henry.
Thank you very much. And what a great introduction to this type of material is to start with the update of the hazard mitigation plan. So it's kind of the way I started out as well when I was in hazard mitigation, and I think it'll be useful for her. So this is the third update of the county all hazard mitigation plan. This covers all 52 municipalities within the county. Each municipality has to adopt this plan on their own, at their own meeting via resolution, as well as the county. And it provides for the ability to access public assistance funding after a presidential disaster is declared. It's essential, actually, to being able to access those funds for public infrastructure that's damaged during floods and other major disasters. But I guess representing the consultant selection committee, we've decided that Michael Baker International would be the firm that we should select for this process. We've worked with them in the past. I think we've had maybe 2 or 3 different contracts over maybe the past 10 years with them, and find them to be very consistent and deliver a great product for us.
Great.
Just one other thing that I'd like to mention is the normal planning process involves a lot of public outreach and public meetings. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic and are probably going to be working on doing virtual meetings as much as possible for our outreach. So that'll be an interesting challenge that we'll have going forward through this update.
Okay, any discussion on this?
No, we are looking forward to getting Ms. Henry on and to getting this done so that we are in compliance and we can move ahead in the event of a hazard
disaster.
Right. I'll move to approve the hazard mitigation plan, selecting Michael Baker International.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
7.2, Krista McLaughlin.
I really do have to touch the mic, I apologize.
You're okay.
He's a little bit taller than I am.
What?
Good morning, Commissioners. In the interest of time, on Tuesday we went over all of the projects that had been provided, and thank you. And so I will just list the projects that I am recommending and the amount of recommendation, the amount of funding. for each project, as well as mention the Jersey Shore and Montoursville projects, which need to be rolled into this. So for Lycoming County, I am recommending STEP Supportive Housing Program in the amount of $55,000. And the American Rescue Workers, that's also rental mortgage utility assistance in the amount of $55,000. Again, just to reiterate what I said on Tuesday, is these sound like very similar projects, but in my discussions with the planning department, which was very helpful, I understand that there are different clientele in some instances that some people are more apt to call STEP for assistance, and some people are more apt to call an organization like the American Rescue Workers. And so I think that this will not be duplication of effort, and they are also organizations that work together, so that we do not have a situation where someone is calling both organizations to receive assistance, that they are receiving assistance in accordance with the regulations from only one organization. The other two projects to be funded from the county is what we're calling Feeding Lycoming County Residents, which is the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank, in the amount of $19,776. And the second project is North Central Site Services Assistance to the Visually Impaired. They were here today. And that is in the amount also of $19,776. I believe I mentioned on Tuesday that I have followed up with them. There were some questions about, because of the higher amount of their request versus the amount that we are giving them. Just like all organizations throughout the county, COVID has hit them in multiple ways. They are having, obviously, additional requests for services and assistance, but also COVID has impacted their ability to do fundraising. That is true for all of these organizations, and so they're seeing a loss of revenue anticipated revenue, at the same time they're seeing an increase in need. And then lastly, administration, which is 10%, which is $16,600. And that the total for that is $166,152. That is administration plus all of the projects that I just mentioned. Jersey Shore and Montoursville have also both selected their projects. And Jersey Shore, we're going to call that right now Jersey Shore Assistance. And that is in the amount of $55,583. And their administration is, $6,100. And so those two numbers together total $61,683, which is their allocation. And then for Montoursville Borough, we have $10,000 allocated to a borough building glass partition. We have Montoursville Assistance, which is in the amount of $46,163. And lastly, their administration, which is $6,200, or the total amount of $62,363, which is their total allocation.
Okay, any questions or discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept?
I'll move to approve the items as read.
I'll second. All fair side.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And I just want to take 1 minute, if I may, to say also thank you to the commissioners and to Lycoming County organizations. I present a lot of things here, and I just want to say that I learn a lot myself in being here and in working with these organizations throughout the county that mean a lot to me. And the American Rescue Workers, STEP, the site services. I've worked with the Center for Independent Living over a number of years, and a lot of other organizations throughout the county. And so I want to just take this time to thank the commissioners for allowing me to learn more about Lycoming County and the needs of Lycoming County residents. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for what you do.
7.3, Jason Yorks is on the line. Jason?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Jason.
Commissioners, before you for approval is a 5-year contract with DACO. This company is the one that would provide welding services for any of our heavy equipment on an as-needed basis. Last time we had a contract signed with them was from 2014. Price per hour was $90. It is now $105, which comes out to a 16% increase. Basically, it's 2.5% per year of an increase. The company absorbed cost in increases of materials and supplies for the last 6 years and never raised their rates on us. I did go and check my other service companies that would bring in a trucker at $128 per hour for Cleveland Brothers and so forth. Also, I have a contact with welding supply companies, and the supplies and welding, wire, rod, so forth, are usually seeing a 4 to 8% increase each year. It's possible, what do they call them, surcharges. So this is a very generous opportunity to have a guy on the ability to come in and weld if we need him. So I recommend your approval.
Commissioner, you have any questions?
So, Mr. Yorks, in your opinion, the services is not, the increase is not outrageous?
No, sir. Actually, his hourly rate is still, in my mind, low.
Because he's $23 an hour below the next one.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Welding supplies get very expensive, and he hasn't hit us with any surcharges, and that's typically how welding supply companies tack on their extra money and fees to the people who buy the materials. So they use surcharges as a method. But the industry sees a 4 to 8% increase every year, and we've not experienced that with his billing. So at 2.5% a year, I'm quite happy with.
Okay, I'll move to approve the contract with Dyco.
And Jason, this is as needed, correct?
Yes, sir, it is. We do, Commissioner, have some big work lined up for this individual. It's some heavy stuff for our compactors, but when we went to go to use him this year, we realized the contract had ran out last year, so that's why we wanted to get it back so we have him if we need him.
Okay, thank you. I'll second it. All fair side?
Aye.
Aye. So carried.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner comment?
Nope, I don't have anything at this time.
I don't have anything.
Well, Mr. Chairman, have a safe trip. Say hello to the president for all of us.
Yes, we have public comment?
I am so sorry. We don't have too much public left here, but we do have public comment. There's someone who's...
Yep. They want to make sure they were included.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Steve Mudler. That's M-U-T-H-L-E-R. I became interested in the hotel tax mid-year 2017 when the commissioners advertised that the rate was to change to 5% from 3% that it had been for a number of years. I submitted a right to know request on the 7th of November of 2019, and due to my email, it was submitted by email to Mr. McDermott. Apparently I received a response, but I never saw it under a pile of emails. But I've reinstituted the request, and Ms. Ebner was very helpful in obtaining the information for us. And I've transferred it into an active spreadsheet for my own purposes, and I've provided you a copy. You can see that over the period of 10 and a half years, the county has received and transferred to the Lycoming County Visitors Bureau nearly $10 million. I had asked the commissioners at more than one occasion, have they ever received an itemized description or an itemized accounting for these funds? I've been impressed by the commissioners' meticulous care in analyzing the requests that have been put forward to them by their staff and had their staff research and take very good care of our tax dollars. However, this is a black hole because, to my knowledge, the commissioners have never requested an accounting from the Lycoming County Visitors Bureau of how these funds have been expended. I am here to request that the commissioners pursue that, forwarding a request to the Visitors Bureau. That should be fairly easy with the modern accounting software to provide a report, say at least for the last 5 years. I'd like to go further, but that would be enough for me. And I will be back. Thank you.
One question for you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Where do you live?
Nippenose Township, Village of Annisford. Thank you. I forgot that.
And when you say a report, what do you?
Well, I'd like detailed information on how the money is spent. It's, in my understanding, to be used to promote tourism and activities in the county, the entire county, not any one part of it. And I'd like to know how it's being spent.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions for him? Or?
No, I do not. Did I hear he had a document that he was providing for us?
Yeah, and we have a copy for you that we're going to get to you and to Commissioner Messere. It's basically a chart. Yep.
It's a spreadsheet, sir. It's actually the same layout that I was provided in the request.
Okay. When do you have any deadline? I mean, do you have you want this a year from now? You want it 6 months from now? You want it? I mean, nothing happens without
without giving a point.
What are you looking for?
I'll give you 90 days, so at least I request a report.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment?
We don't see any, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, our meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, July 28th at 10 a.m. in the Commissioner's briefing room.
Thank you.
Thank you, and everybody have a good day.
Thank you.